Hello, everybody. My name is Terry, and I'm an alcoholic. Glad to be here today. I was just patrolling around beforehand and down where the shuttle bus was to see who the faithless ones were who were taking off for fun and frolic while we were having a spiritual meeting. The bus wasn't too full. Anyway, I was just informed by Steve that we're shifting the schedule around a little bit. And instead of me doing this thing that's on the Serenity Prayer today and tomorrow, this is it, folks, just today, and then there's something else tomorrow morning, and I'm supposed to pitch at night tomorrow night, so a different thing. So I was going to, by the way, I'm an alcoholic and everything, and if you didn't look at the program close, I have a license to actually talk about something, you know. We're not used to that, and I always get kind of mad if somebody has a topic. You know, come on, tell your story and trust God. I will try to trust God and tell a bit of my story, but actually keep in mind a bit about the Serenity Prayer, and I was going to just talk about the first line today, but Steve says I got to talk about both the first two lines in the same day. Serenity Prayer, you know, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I heard that prayer a lot as a little kid. My father was in AA in 1943 and 44. In the history of the program in the West Coast, that was early. And he had a few slips and he died of the disease. But I grew up with Serenity Prayer one day at a time, easy does it. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. And I thought one day at a time and the Serenity Prayer seemed to be the most offensive, without any content things. I mean, this didn't mean anything. So what is that? Kind of fatalism and rah-rahism and anyway, I wasn't much impressed. Unless we're reflecting on a spiritual awakening God gives us and saves our life, the Serenity Prayer doesn't amount to much. And it's only in, as they say, in retrospect, that it takes on some charge. And I'm not too far along in my recovery yet, so my favorite line of the Serenity Prayer is still the first line. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. And I think the big revolution, the rise of Alcoholics Anonymous, the beginning of our fellowship, Bob and Bill, and I'm sure most of you saw the movie last week, which I loved. It was I was so happy that it wasn't a revisionist version of something, and that it just told the story as best they could. And so many people say, I always pictured the hotel lobby just like that. Anyway, this tremendous revolution has to do with the first line of the Serenity Prayer, and that is that it seems to me that as recovery began, as Bill stayed sober and Bob got sober and some other people, and they started talking about alcoholism as a disease, God bestowed a gift upon the alcoholics in this world. He gave us the beginning of a practical way to join hands and have some wisdom on how to get it straight, that we don't have to get over alcoholism. Well, and no one could ever figure they didn't have to get over alcoholism without ever knowing what alcoholism was. But all I know is that when I drank, and I never met any other dope fiend or alcoholic any different, that in drinking days, as I prayed for God's help, and I prayed for God's help a lot in between my 6 hospitalizations and before that, God, please help me. And as I prayed for help with my drinking problem, first, please help me learn how to drink right. I figured God, he knew that Catholics were allowed to drink, and so he was supposed to make me be able to learn how to drink right. And then I knew about alcohol. I had written a paper on alcoholism before I drank, and raised with the disease concept. So it wasn't too long into it that I was praying to be sober. And I kept getting drunk anyway. But I'm going to mix up this thing, my story. The point I want to make first is the revolution. It's the thing that every single person here today has been given, and it lives on, and we begin, I think, to take for granted, is that we didn't have to get over being ourselves. It seemed like it. But before the program, my drinking problem and everything connected with it was a big gob of stuff. My urges, my drunks, my secret poisonous thoughts, my despair, and on and on and on, my sense of alienation, and my disease of alcoholism, all kind of a ball of yarn with gum in it. And I knew that I had to somehow get freed of this. I have to get over it. God help me. Dissolve, get rid of this thing. Cut it out of me, away. And as I was dragged into Alcoholics Anonymous, I began to experience what every single person who's ever gotten sober here experiences, and that is, you're very calmly, everybody's calm. Nobody ever meets a group of people more laid back and calm and self-sufficient and insufferably self-satisfied as everybody else in an AA meeting when you first get there. They all seem to have found everything out a long time ago. And just this confidence. And you have this. Not only do you have a lot of problems, but you have problems behind the problems that you don't bother even bringing up, because, this amateur hour opponent will be able to handle the basic things, let alone your deep stuff, because you're sensitive and all that. You have meaning of life problems and everything. Anyway, but what starts to be revealed very soon is that, and I'll put it this way, a distinction begins to be made. A distinction, that distinction is maybe symbolized or expressed by the first two lines of the Serenity Prayer. Make a distinction. And I've had people kind of look at me as if to say, you have a kind of a confused and angry look in your eyes, a look of deep disappointment, self-contempt. Part of it seems to be a terrible worry, maybe even a conviction, that not only are you really screwed up, but that there's little chance you'll ever get over it. And we'd like to hold your hand while you adjust to the fact that you're right. That you're not going to get over it. You're not going to get over your alcoholism. There's something about, and you don't know what alcoholism is, but even if you did, you'd want to get over it right now before you put in your 1,000 hours of identification with other alcoholics, which is necessary to calm down enough to consider that perhaps having it forever is okay. Having alcoholism forever is just fine. No mark against us, nothing about our character. Its main effect, once we adjust and accept God's gift of having the serenity to accept what we cannot change, our alcoholism just lets us meet people faster. That's the big effect it has on a daily basis, is that your conversations get to deeper stuff quicker, After a few cliches, we get right down to telling secrets. And so there's no disadvantage of being alcoholic at all, but there's absolutely no way to know that, to begin with, because it's a gob. Our alcoholism is a gob with alcoholic drinking, and with all the tragic, heartbreaking, life-threatening, life-destroying behavior and feelings that go along with alcoholic drinking. And right as these people, these insufferably confident and omniscient-looking people are telling me, yeah, you're even worse than you think. Not only do you have a drinking problem, you are powerless over drinking. Not only can't you control your drinking once you start, you can't remember that you shouldn't start after your 6th hospitalization. You can't remember. Or you remember, but you can't remember why remembering mattered. And that's kind of a selective kind of insanity. And you say, well, help me get over that. No, we won't. We'd like to hold your hand while you get used to having that insanity. And while you get used to letting your higher power give you a faith and a confidence that you're going to be loved and helped and boosted up and taken care of so that you can live just fine while you're powerless over alcohol. And all of that just sounds like a trick. Sounds like fast talk, What else are you going to sell me? No. It sounds like a trick and smart alecky stuff when we haven't experienced the wonder of being drawn into recovery. And as we get in, this distinction we make between our alcoholism and alcoholic drinking and all the stuff that goes with alcoholic drinking, and the good news, one day at a time, we get to change and have a change that we don't have a drink one day at a time, no alcohol in, and then no travails that come from drinking periodically or every day, and then just revolutionary changes take place in our life. But this thing of that we stay alcoholic, but we don't have alcoholic drinking. Now, that's almost insulting to everybody's intelligence in a group of recovering alcoholics to bring it up. We live with that distinction so clearly. I mean, it's the basis of life. And as we get a little sober, it just gets so clear that we wonder why people have such trouble understanding something so easy and clear as that. What could be, you'd have to be pretty dumb not to catch on to the difference between alcoholism and alcoholic drinking. And yet, I think if you're drinking, you can't make the distinction. Because the distinction is not an intellectual one. It's spiritually arrived at. It's someone, I can get that in my head, fine, and then it won't touch my heart, and it'll kind of just be on this bounce on the surface and go out and it won't help me out. The Serenity Prayer, I think, does talk about a spiritual awakening. We don't say, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, like certain factors in the market. Just to say the prayer so I can do better on making money. We're talking about something a lot more important. Well, that's that distinction goes on. Now, I guess I want to say, I think it's part of the gratitude for sobriety is to sing a song of gratitude for having that distinction, having those two lines of the Serenity Prayer applied so clearly on our alcoholism. When it's real clear, we get to be comfortably sober. When it's not clear, everything's a mess. And it's just a joy to have it clear. Now, I think this, having experienced the terrific liberation of getting it straight in those terms, the difference between what I can't change, that is my alcoholism, and what I can change with God's help, drinking, that does serve as a basis for a bunch of other wising up experiences in life, and I don't think we're ever going to get wised up as clearly as that in any other issue. But I think that the fundamental experience is a big help on how to get the other things, start to get the other things clear. Now, I know there's some people here who are pure Al-Anons, but I don't think there's anybody here who isn't at least an impure Al-Anon. That is, or a double winner, or I haven't met anybody myself who has a spontaneous, habitual, relaxed, deeply spiritual-rooted attitude of letting everybody be and having no emotional need at all that other people behave properly. I haven't met anybody like that in my life. I've met some people who are stark raving mad in the other direction, and some people in the middle maybe, but I haven't met anybody who isn't either codependent, as we say. I'm treading in a minefield here of terminology. You can't, I know whatever I say is the wrong word to certain groups. But you know what I mean. I mean, there's this basic thing, and there's something in the whole world of getting sick in relationships. The parallel of getting sick in relationships and recovery is Al-Anon. Everything we know about Al-Anon recovery parallels recovery from alcoholism, and so alcoholic drinking parallels something to do with poisonous codependency. This well-known thing that we all kind of get on the basics of it, that if you live around somebody using and drinking, you're going to lose. One-on-one, that's a good principle. One-on-one with an alcoholic or dope fiend, you lose. Period. You have to join together with the whole world of recovery to have a chance against one drunk or dope fiend. And I don't care how old they are or young they are. And the one-on-one, we all kind of have a predictable way of handling that. The first thing is we get manipulated. Probably the very first thing is getting manipulated into what I call the Christian response. And I use that sarcastically, of course. Quotation marks around Christian. I like to think of the mildest form of codependency, if I could say. And that's not in a family or something. This is at a polite social gathering, and there's somebody who's kind of half in the bag, and you're not. Okay? And they come up to you and they're talking, and they had a few before they got there, and they're not too bad, okay? Not too bad, but they're, you know how it is. There's an extra bit of presence and energy that a chemical gives somebody that renders them emotionally unavailable to anybody, totally insensitive to what you're up to or thinking, a bit repetitive, breathe in your face, step on your toe, and when you say your part of the conversation, you say something back, you always have the feeling that you didn't say it. Right after you say it, you wondered if you said it. You wondered, did I say that? Maybe I should reword this. So you reword it, and you still have the feeling you didn't say it, because this person's not giving you anything back to indicate they've heard it. And so as you stand around a drunk or someone under the influence, you feel dumber and dumber as you go on. Now, I don't want to make too much of that, but the point of that kind of scene is that we're in a society that is sick relative to alcoholism and drug addiction. And there's certain societal rules. And I like to call this the covenant. The covenant between the drinker and the non-drinker. And this covenant breaks down in extreme drunkenness, and the society says, you don't have to keep it if they just collapse. If they fall into their food or they hit you, you're no longer required to pretend they're not drunk. But until that point, the covenant is this, or the contract. You might say, let's say I'm the drunk speaking. Okay, here's the deal, you guys. I've been drinking, and I'm a little bit, I'm half in the bag. Not too bad. But to get through this relationship that we've got now with me having had a few drinks and you not, is that it's very important that you don't say anything or change your behavior in any way that indicates that you think I'm drunk. I want that from you, okay? That's what I require. You're supposed to behave in a way, be polite, do not say anything or do anything where you act like a judgmental, righteous asshole. Because I will retaliate, you know. My part of the bargain is I'm not going to be really bad to you. I'm going to let you off kind of easy. I won't get gross. You do your part of the bargain, I'll do my part. We break down, all bets are off. Got it? And so, as we do that, we all are trained to be on the covenant. Okay, I'll be polite. And so we enter into a very sick thing of compromising ourselves, agree not to be candid about pretty strong feelings, and smother it. That's what I call the Christian, the sick Christian response of just enabling this thing. And what I'm trying to do there is control, is to keep the place. I'm afraid of this. The potential for embarrassment and awful feelings in a scene is very great. And so I'm trying to do this smooth. Let's get through this without any plates being thrown or yelling or humiliating me. So what I have is this basic need to control the situation. I think if I can just keep this thing smooth, we're going to get through all right. So I'm going to do that. And then when you get closer to an alcoholic, the classic things of being even nicer than that and being an enabler who does things for a person, who tells lies and lends money inappropriately and shields a person and cleans up the mess and puts a blanket over the body and that kind of stuff you do for quite a while. And you do that because this is still kind of sick Christian approach. And then that alternates with anger and rejection and lecturing to change them. And so when a person gets years of this and is finally into this straitjacket of insanity where I am living my day every day, I'm going through the whole time with my attention focused on another person, and I have a covenant with them. This is the covenant I make. I talk about the covenant the drinker tries to make with us. Here's the covenant that we make with the dope fiend or drinker after things have been going on a while. Here's the deal. I resolve never to be relaxed or happy at all unless you shape up and behave properly. It's all up to you. My destiny, my well-being, and my whole life rests in your hands. Now, that would be a pretty dumb deal to make with somebody in good shape. But we picked the sickest person in the neighborhood to make the deal with, you know, and zero in, and we're in this illness. So when a person gets to Al-Anon, they start getting wised up to this thing about releasing with love, and no, you don't have to get the other person to change in order to be. And I don't want to go through the point I want to make is that there is, in my opinion, an unchangeable, down deep center of wrong-headedness, or disease, if you will, in a that's analogous to alcoholism, that there's something that never changes. And this came through to me. The way it comes through to me is that I'm a clergyman. You know, I'm somebody that people come to talk to a lot. And Al-Anons tend to come to talk to me earlier on. I get alcoholics usually don't talk to me at all unless they're sober a long time. And then Al-Anons wise up and don't talk to me. They only talk to me before they go to meetings. No, pardon me. Lots of them after they go to meetings. In fact, it's this, the point I'm circling around here is came home to me by talking to members who are recovering as members of Al-Anon, and who had a typical kind of complaint. I would talk to a person in the program for some years, and it would go something like this. You know, I'm not getting better. I mean, I'm not, here I am, I've been in Al-Anon 13 years. I sponsor 16 people. I go to meetings regularly, and I'm plotting on how to fix. I got a new plan on how to get him to shape up. And I didn't even notice it. It was bad enough that I had the plan. I've been working on it for 2 years, and I didn't notice that while I was saving other people. And so there's this despair comes in that I notice that, my gosh, I have this energy to fix other people or to change things, or I get depressed because they're not behaving, even if I'm not actively working on them changing. I'm mad that they're not. And I kind of won't let myself alone while they're still going on, and that sort of thing. And what comes across to me from many people was, we gotta find the answer. We've got to find the answer so that I will work my program well enough so that I won't feel so embarrassed that I'm this bad off, that I'm all energized to keep changing people even after all this time. Now that's the implication. And what I hear there is that I want enough help, I want to find the answer that will allow me to be good and well enough so that I don't need the program. I want to get enough help so that that I won't qualify for the program. So that I will have no significant urge to change anybody. I was reading a thing, the Dr. Enid Young is her name, a learned sort of paper, that I met her in the program later. She's a psychologist, and I have to give her credit. I read the stuff here, but I churned it through my process, so I really shouldn't mention her name, I guess. I'll misquote her. But the phrase she came up with as the eradicable center of the co-disease, the part that you cannot change, the equivalent of alcoholism, the thing that you should just settle for and not even try to get over, is what she called the belief in control. That in somewhere in the recesses of a wounded heart, we have an emotional conviction that if I can just get them to change a little bit, that really will help a lot. That somehow our well-being depends upon you changing. I don't mean completely reforming. Some of your faults are charming, but I just mean, I just have a few suggestions. And if, they're really elementary suggestions. You don't have, just a few little things. And if you do that for me, we'd get along fine. It'd be neat. And then when we get more sophisticated, and we find out, if we get really drummed into you, that no, it's not them, it's an inside job. Not only are you not able to change anybody, any place, anything, but when you try, you create reaction. When you try, you enter a new. It isn't that you just try, you don't quite make it, but the very trying is a disease process that spreads around hostility and reaction and a discontent. So that as you're trying to do this person a little favor of fine-tuning their recovery for them, you're getting them mad as hell and restive and irritated. And it's no little thing. So come on, hands off. Ask God's help. Release them, but good. Really let them be. Just give them permission to drink and use. Give them permission to be jerks. On and on and on. Okay. And if you get that far along in the program, and then find, okay, I got hands off, I'm releasing with love, it's very depressing. That that they're changing so slowly, or that I got my hand, some people when they release with love are lucky enough to be around a person who is working a program so that they keep changing some way anyway. I happened, in the luck of the draw, to get a significant other who isn't working a program very well, if at all. They think they're working a program. Doesn't look much like to me they're working a program. I mean, I wouldn't mind it if they were working it enough to show some change. But I mean, I've told them, it isn't that I've nagged them, but I just politely informed them 25 or 30 times about this problem they have. And do you think they've even done one bit of footwork on it? I mean, I don't want revolutionary change, just a little sign of goodwill in that direction. No, they just plow on and keep smoking and being obnoxious. And I'm not saying you'd actually say it in those words, but if something is going on inside like that, my suggestion is that perhaps we haven't prayed the Serenity Prayer deeply enough relative to the thing in us that is sick and is under the impression that I will be all right if I can change you guys, or if I can change the world. And that's a sick little twist I got in me. And I'm convinced myself that I will never get rid of it, ever. And that having a program of 12 steps with a fellowship in my life gives me a chance to live a life of reasonable sanity relative to my relationships. But I have to be willing to undergo the humiliation of rediscovering a deep, strongly energized emotional conviction that it really would help if I could change you. I just figured out that it won't. Why are you so convinced? Well, I'm sick. I got a disease. Now, I think we have a built-in wisdom in our recovery relative to alcoholism here that we don't have in other things, it seems like to me. In other words, with alcoholic to alcoholic, you'd never say to somebody who is suffering from some obsession, and they come in and say, boy, you know, I was driving home, and the way I used to drive home from work, and there's a liquor store I always went into, and I didn't even turn the car. My car just went in the regular place, and I kind of got out, and I just knew it was time to get a bottle. And I was out of the car, going in the liquor store, like in a trance, and knowing that this was the time to drink again. And it was just shook me up, and I don't know, am I crazy? And I don't know, maybe I didn't work the program at all yet, and maybe, and you never say, you did what? You know, haven't you been listening in the meetings at all? You know, we never do that. We always, there's a built-in wisdom that honors the reality of the disease, that says if you start to get an obsession, that doesn't mean you failed, that just means you qualify for the program. That just means you're an honest-to-God dingbat alcoholic who deserves a hug at every meeting you go to. That's all an obsession means. And that you get to be sober a day at a time, and that's the good news. And you might say some of the bad news is, the price of that is that we have to be absolutely willing to undergo the humiliation of being reminded that we're really alcoholics. And we kind of get that. And I don't think it comes through probably the way other things spiritual. What's got to come through, comes through, you know. If that doesn't come through, you're dead. So our higher power says, well, let them get that clear, because they're going to be dead, see, and they're really screwed up. So we've got to get that clear. And then the other things, and I'm, you know, my own life, this thing in relationships, I get to experience my belief in control and my status as a sucker, my status as someone who is a prime candidate for manipulation. You know, you can't be manipulated if you don't have a secret agenda. The people who can get conned are waiting to get conned. Now, one place I feel this is, I get to do interventions occasionally. And I've been involved in a lot of interventions with clergy. That's mostly what I'm in. And that's when you bring the good news of recovery to a person way before they're interested. Usually based on doing the typical horrible things we do when we drink, and they're in real trouble with their job, and the boss uses you as a consultant to say, I'd like you to talk to so-and-so. It's 2 drunk driving arrests and 25 letters from the parishioners. I love those kind. That's good stuff. But sometimes it's bigger. But my point is that what I have experienced many times, you know, I have a need for you to behave in a certain way. I have an my belief in control extends to that if we can keep getting along and be sensible in our, I don't want you to lose it. I don't want you to just basically misunderstand me and get mad at me. That's not nice. I'll have a good day if you don't. So I want to explain this real clearly so you'll get it right, and then you will take care of me emotionally by understanding what I have to say. And so, so I am when that feeling is in me at all, I am ready to get manipulated a bit, you know. And that's why you never do it alone. You kind of get, and I've been in conversations where I have, you know, evidence of a person's work performance impairment, to use the lingo of the intervention. I see signs this poor guy is suffering from alcoholism and he's dying and he's full of confusion the way we all are. It's my brother. I love him. I do love him. But I'm a bit of a okay? So you can't wait till you get over being that before you take some action. So take some action. I'm not going to try to change him. It's just all a matter of this. When an intervention is done properly, it's done spiritually. You know, you release with love this person, and it's all a matter of just putting the stuff out there and see what they do next. But when I meet somebody with a real championship level of denial, the kind of denial that has it isn't that it's so strong, I think, that it doesn't have any chinks in it. It's a smooth denial. It covers everything. The kind of thing that, and you kind of lay the stuff out, and they say, well, yeah, I've been drinking a little too much. Oh, there's no question about it. Yeah, that's all. But hospital? Oh, I'm sorry, that's impossible. And I, by the way, I'm not going to drink anymore. You don't want me to drink? I won't drink. No problem to me. No one ever brought it up before. And you go on, and I have been on the verge of apologizing for having brought up the topic. Out of my now, it's for me to work my program and live a life and just get through the day. I have a choice of how I work my program. If I don't accept God's gift of making that distinction clearly between having the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, I will keep praying and working on this so that I'll get so good at this that I'm not even touched or thrown off at all. But I'll just say, I'm not going to give the feeling I should apologize to this person for even bringing up the topic. They got a disease, and I'm doing them a favor. No, my attitude is, I will probably always be susceptible to that kind of thing because I'm defective in some ways. The fact that I'm defective is no more a source of depression or discouragement, really, than the fact that I'm an alcoholic. I can live just fine with this defect. I just have to be humiliated constantly by being filled with feelings that are contrary to the most basic Al-Anon advice in cliches. I've got to feel myself, a prime candidate for a newcomers meeting on a daily basis. And if we're willing. And isn't that the way recovery from alcoholism begins relative to alcohol? That somehow it's unless we're willing to be obsessed and not have a drink one day at a time, right while we're obsessed and crazy, unless we're willing to do that, we never make it. You know? Somehow that the willingness to have that is a key deal. I got to tell a little story about powerlessness. Steve asked me why I was, he said, there must be some story about why you were late coming here. And I think this involves a little bit of an example of finding something I'm powerless over that I cannot change, and having a very great difficulty letting it be in that category. This is my story of last night. I was scheduled to get an airplane just before 10 o'clock and fly to Miami and get here at 9 in the morning. I got here at 5 in the afternoon. This is what happened. I had a very busy day and had a big celebration with my class. I was ordained a priest 25 years ago, and we had a big celebration yesterday with all my classmates, and got to give a talk in front of the Archbishop and all the seminarians. It was a kind of a buzzy time and all of this, and went home and got my stuff, and the guy was driving me to the airport who likes airports and everything. And we went there. He does, he really. Well, that's a whole story there. And we got there. I looked at my watch, and we had about bedtime. Pretty easy. I figured I was going to get there almost an hour before the flight. Maybe not an hour. Maybe, then we left later. But it was in time. So I got there, and he dropped me off, and he said he wanted to come in and check out the terminal. And so I put my bag through the thing, and he came in, and we walked up together and saw that it was an Airbus. Checked out the equipment I was going to be using. And there wasn't much action there at American Airlines. And so he said goodbye. And I thought, gee, got here a lot earlier than I thought. And so I went, read something, and I noticed the place where the plane was going to leave from was just dark. There was nobody behind the counter. And someone might come. So I decided to make a phone call to a friend, and then I sat down and I said my prayers. I have this little breviary, and I prayed a while. And then I made another phone call. Then I bought some popcorn. And then I thought, well, when are they going to get action? I went over there, and the plane had left an hour before. I didn't notice when it left. I don't know. Have you ever had a dream where you're going to get married and you forgot to show up? Where you're going to have the big day, and you don't have any clothes on, you're not there. Well, I needed this popcorn. I think, this is impossible. And I fly all the time. I fly commuter flights. I fly to Europe. I always get my plane. But I didn't barely miss it. It's 15 minutes after it should have left. I got the hour wrong. And so it was 11 o'clock when I decided to start from scratch on how to find out how to get here from Los Angeles last night. And so that's what happened. And I had but way in the deepest part of me, something was coming up saying, this is not fair. They should allow one rewind. Everybody should get, it's only decent. You should get one rewind once in a while on something, because this is just too humiliating to believe it could possibly happen. And but I realized that there's no rewind in life. Not even a pause. I have a little trouble getting that in the category of the first line of the Serenity Prayer. And I've got, now the second line of the Serenity Prayer, I'm really not done with the first line at all. The first line goes on and on. I want to, so much of what I find negative in myself has to do with me not yet willing to keep my eyes open and prayerfully adjust to the fact that there are some things I cannot change. I got enough information to figure this out. Information's not the problem. It's a spiritual thing. It's a willingness. It's a level of trust in God. You know, and I feel that I like to trust God and everything, but I like to get in good enough shape where I don't have to do it a lot. Like I say, I like to, get enough help from God, I won't have to bother Him very much. Things like, and for me, I'm kind of a neurotic, introspective type, and I find it more difficult to accept the things within myself than I do out there. I find it difficult out there, too. But within myself, I think, oh, come on. It's time to shape up. When are you going to stop fooling around? And what I often mean is I am offended by the fact that I have some defects of character that are rather deeply rooted. A fear that's the basis of some procrastination. And it's a gob. Okay? It's a gob, and I'd like to get over it. And the program, in my experience, every time there's a gob of stuff that I want to get over, I want to get over my procrastination, I want to get over being fearful about some kind of work, I want to get over being kind of selfish and, a little bit self-centered and self-preoccupied. You just don't reach out to the newcomers. I mean, this is kid stuff. Come on, get with the program. I mean, let's have a little outgoing love for a change. This preoccupied about how I'm feeling, how I'm doing. Will I ever be happy? I mean, you make me sick. What do you think, you're going to get happy by mulling over it? You've been to a few meetings. The thing is, it's self-forgetfulness. It's getting with the program and throwing away any notion of being happy your way. You know that, and letting yourself be happy God's way, which is healthy anyway. Your version of being happy is so sick that if God let you do that, you'd be a menace to the neighborhood and destroy yourself anyway. So, for crying out loud, get over this. And I want it's a gob, you see. My self-obsession, self-preoccupation, together with the expression of it, is a gob. And the program allows me to have God help me do the same thing He did with alcoholism. That is, it doesn't stay a gob. It kind of comes apart. And one part says, you are an insecure, self-obsessed, comically narcissistic person. Not many are outside of institutions at this level of and there's little hope this will significantly change. You're 50 years old now. You've had a good run at being able to change this. Doesn't look like. Now that is what you cannot change. And what you can change is just humbly do the footwork that the program suggests, and the edge will be taken off in your actual life. And that you will, by just playing ball, you show up, and you shake hands. You don't want to shake hands and forget about yourself and do other things, and you can't even do that. You will be thinking, I wonder how I'm doing shaking hands. I wonder if this person notices that I'm the only one who came over to greet them in their first. Does everyone else greet the newcomer? No, I'm the only one greeting newcomers at this meeting. So if you're at a certain level of far gone self-obsession, you will notice every little bit about how you reach out to others. Now, as we do that kind of thing, and if we're praying the Serenity Prayer, that's fine. That's the program. That's success. We just do the footwork. And then the more footwork we do, the more we begin to act like human beings and act like children of God. And then we get the payoff, too. Every single time I act like a child of God and just act decently, there's a response back that comes and touches my heart, and I know that I'm in on the being a human race, and I'm reopening for business as a human being, and I love it. And I think, I wonder how well I'm doing at this. No, that's self-obsession again. Okay. You're not allowed to worry about how you're doing it, but I do. But don't energize it. Yeah. And so the way I understand the serenity prayer here is that I ask God to grant me the serenity to accept that I'm a narcissistic basket case, and the courage to do the footwork suggested by the program when you're in that condition, and to be willing to be in the condition forever. You mean I don't get to get over it at all? No, not at all. You mean, oh, will I ever improve? Of course you'll improve. Alcoholics stay alcoholic forever. They don't get over it. In fact, you ever notice how you were barely alcoholic when you got to the program? And now you're about 10 times more alcoholic than you were? And you don't mind it? You don't mind it? Yeah, I used to think those passages, there's a passage in Scripture, Paul writes about, I am the least of all the apostles. I don't deserve to be called an apostle. There's nobody worse than me. I'm the worst. And, I think, oh, come on, Paul. And if you read the lives of the saints, it's full of that kind of stuff. But you know, I think an experience, I think we all share here, is kind of waking up, and I bet you everybody here has had a similar type of experience. That is right, and it's usually right after we're touched very much, right after we experience sobriety as a gift, right after we start being released from the worst part of being trapped in self-obsession, that we allow someone to come in and our heart is touched, and we actually have a little bit of a relationship of give and take with a sponsor and another person. And as we start doing this and we start shaking some hands and we're actually doing give and take stuff, and we have these little, human workouts, little workouts that regular human beings do all the day. And right while we're doing that, and our heart is comforted, and we start coming alive, and hope begins to flood into us that, by golly, life is possible. Didn't you, right at that moment, be able to see your self-obsession in a completely new way? Right when we're not totally threatened with being smothered and killed by it. Right when we begin to experience the rescue from our higher power, the mercy of God, where we get to actually live and connect with another person, then we're safe enough to see, oh, poor baby, you are so self-obsessed. We can't afford to see it before, see? Because it's too dangerous. It would be totally negative. But once we're kind of on the road, that's why we can't see our alcoholism until we're sober a long time. Only when we're sober quite a while we say, oh, alcoholic? Are you alcoholic? Let me tell you, you don't know alcoholic till you heard me tell my story, I want to, and this strikes people as odd at first if they don't know alcoholic. Spiritually, this is the same thing on every other issue. If you're self-obsessed, and if you could, a little bit, I do give to charity, and if you get that kind of a response, you know that there hasn't been a lot of freshening up yet. There hasn't been a lot of mercy of the program yet, and so the person has still got a gob there. There's a gob, and yeah, I am, but I wish it was all gone. And when we allow God to make that distinction, yes, I am, and do footwork, See, it's doing the first part of the serenity prayer as we accept the things we cannot change. Only then are we set free enough to do footwork. I'm too uptight about everything to do footwork. You know, footwork, before we kind of release and have the acceptance, footwork, it just seems like such chicken shit stuff. You want me to go where? Want to go to a meeting? I mean, I have real problems. You want to drag me across the town and sit in a place with a bunch of strangers and listen to inarticulate people go on in a self-obsessed way and take my whole evening for that? I mean, I had a schedule that I'm a busy person. And we just finally schedule a time together and we're going to go to a meeting. And that kind of footwork seems to be irrelevant, hardly any chance to make a significant difference, because I am stuck with my gob. And I'm right. Going to a meeting is not going to just take away the gob at all. But before the gob begins to come apart into both parts, where I know to accept the things I can't change, and the change is always, see, change is footwork. Courage to do the things I can, change the things I can't. The change isn't making myself good. As steps 6 and 7 say, I became entirely willing for God to remove these defects of character. Humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. God does that. God shapes us up. We do footwork. Footwork is an integral part of getting shaped up. But it's only part of it. There are a bunch of other elements, and even when I do the footwork, I'm not even doing all the footwork. The willingness to do the footwork is a total gift. Knowing what footwork to do is a total gift. So, I mean, I'm in on it, and it's absolutely necessary that I be in on it and give myself, and yet, as I do it, I see that I'm in it, it's bigger than me, and God's doing that. But while I have a gob, while the gob's in front of me, I can't do footwork, because footwork does not address the gob. Footwork addresses cooperating with a process bigger than me. And as I just do, so the big thing, the courage to change the things I can. The only thing I can change is go from not doing simple footwork to doing simple footwork. You mean, Zell? I mean, I got a big job here. You mean, don't take a drink, show up, go to meetings, and read the book? And then do the equivalent in other areas of our life, to do the things I can. And of course, and I'm sure everybody has the same experience. I've had, I can't tell you, all the time, my life, every single day, seems to consist in, I'll have my gob ready. My gob is, I'm supposed to be successful today. Do God's will, be noticed for doing God's will, be quite effective, be admired for being effective, get everything done. That's the gob, and I can't do that. And so the things have to kind of come apart, and I've got to be willing to be a self-obsessed person who wants to look good forever, and then be willing to do footwork that's not going to solve that problem over here. The footwork never directly addresses this thing. It doesn't take it away. When I simply don't have a drink, it doesn't take away my alcoholism. It gives me something else. It gives me the capacity to live while I live with my willingness to be alcoholic and obsessed. So we get this thing, but when we're still kind of in there, when the pain is fresh from the gob, we have to get rid of it all. So it's constantly doing things that don't solve the problem. And the footwork always seems to be chicken shit. It always seems to be such a little thing to do. That why, I mean, are you sure this is the appropriate thing? I mean, to say my prayers, write something out, and go to bed? You're sure about that? Shouldn't I stay up all night and be intense? And on. I told Steve that it was bad pedagogy and hygiene for anyone to talk over an hour. And so I wouldn't do that. I think we started a little late, didn't we? Um, but I have a hard time stopping myself. But I would, we got a little over 15 minutes, and I hope you keep breathing up. And I'm going to, my voice has been going on long enough. I'd like to have 2 or 3 people just give a reflection on their experience of feeling some serenity about accepting the things they cannot change. Maybe about 2 or 3 minutes apiece. I know you're not geared up for that right now, because you thought he is going to just talk forever, and we can safely go off. But I'll bet there's about 2 or 3 people who'd like to just give a 2 or 3 minute share. Yeah, I know.